including declaring her a federal whistleblower. So I'm more optimistic about that than I am about any Colorado court.
You know, and ironically enough, this is the same courthouse that Mike Lindell was in just a couple of months ago for his case involving the elections. And it's different judges, but you really, you go in hoping for the best, but expecting the worst in this situation. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
In Mike's case, he had a jury trial, but this is the judge deciding for Tina.
Yes, and they're deciding on the habeas corpus, which is basically she wants to be let out while they're trying her appeal. If you recall, she requested to be present or at least to stream in, but she's not allowed to do that. The judge ruled against that. So this is not even a hearing this is a hearing to decide whether there's going to be a hearing to decide whether she's going to be let out. So this is kind of a preliminary kind of hearing, and whether it'll go forward or not. If I were this judge, I'd let it go forward because the Department of Justice is knocking on your door, buddy. So you might want to look good right now because things may not be looking so good in a month from now. Trump's thinking about declaring her a federal whistleblower, and that would be the fastest way to get her out. I'm in favor of that, of course. Because I don't think we want to wait around for 2 more years for an appeal while she's sitting there rotting away in prison. She doesn't deserve that. She's a sweetheart. I know her well. I was involved with her right from the very start in Mesa County there with election integrity stuff. I'm the one who arranged to get the backups with her and all that stuff. So she's a sweetheart. She doesn't deserve any of this treatment. They've just decided to make an example out of her.
Yeah, a political prisoner. And her attorneys are arguing today, Dr. Frank, that she is deteriorating in prison. Her health is deteriorating. She is a Gold Star mother. She's elderly now. As you mentioned, she doesn't deserve to be there. This is all a political witch hunt, like you mentioned, to set an example. It's so unfair to her. When we were there for Mike's trial a couple of weeks ago, there were so many people there in support of Mike and also Tina, holding Tina Peters signs wanting to free her. And if you look online, the Free Tina Peters movement is pretty massive. So many people, not just in Colorado, but also all over America, they believe that she needs to be free. And so we're hoping for the best today.
Yeah, I was supposed to testify in that case, Mike's case. And remember the big debate on Friday morning, the final day, the defense wanted me to testify, actually. And the prosecution objected, and the judge ruled that I wasn't going to be allowed. And the reason why the prosecution doesn't want me to testify is because I give credence to Mike's position, right? Remember, that was a defamation trial. And it's not defamation if you believe what you're saying and you have credible reasons to be saying what you're saying. And so, here I am. I'm a Nobel Prize nominee chemist, numeric wizard. I've done all these analyses. I'm showing Mike all these interesting algorithms that I discovered. And even if I was completely wrong, the point of the trial was to decide whether Mike defamed Eric Coomer or not. And the fact is, he had every reason to believe the evidence that I presented to him because it fit like a glove with his own electronic evidence. He was quite excited to meet me, and that's why he made that movie Scientific Proof about me. So that's why the prosecution doesn't want me in there, because I make Mike sound credible. I make his position a credible position, and it works against the prosecution and for Mike's defense. So that's why they opposed it. So we'll have to see what happens next.
Right. I was there when that was going on, and that's exactly what happened and why it happened. But in the end, it pretty much, for the most part, ended in Mike's favor. I think the jury could read through the lines there. You should have been there. You've been a huge help to Mike, and then you've studied all this with election integrity and the faults with our election systems. Going back to Colorado with Tina, she was convicted last year. She maintains her innocence, saying she was targeted for exposing what she claims were vulnerabilities in Colorado's voting systems. And we see this story over and over again, and there's also another case you've worked on too in Ohio, correct? That's very similar to hers.
Yes. When I first met with Tina in April of 2021, she was already suspicious something was wrong with her elections. And so Sharona Bishop had brought me to Colorado, and we had canvassed for 3 days. We'd knocked on doors and found a whole bunch more very suspicious evidence of fraud. And so when I presented that to her, Tina was like, oh my goodness, now what do I do, Dr. Frank? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I think you need to back up everything because we're going to be doing a legal investigation. And she had totally agreed. In fact, she even had a letter from Griswold, the Secretary of State of Colorado, telling her, instructing all of the clerks to do backups of their systems because of the impending trusted build from Dominion. And so, but she said, but I don't know how to do it, Dr. Frank. Would you do it for me? Well, I had just been with Mr. Lindell in studio for several days, and I'd met some people while I was there. And one of the persons I'd met had just done backups on the exact same equipment that Tina had in Michigan, in Antrim, Michigan. And so rather than me getting involved, I said to Tina, look, I could back up your machines for you, but I think it would be far smarter for me to bring in Mr. Lindell's attorney, so that way we don't make any legal errors along the way, and then bring in this expert who's a white hat licensed penetration tester to come in and to do everything legally. That way, later when we prove that there's fraud, we've done everything by the law. And so everything is, it's called fruit from the poison tree. You can't go to court with evidence you obtained illegally. So we made sure we did everything properly. And basically we did a backup before the trusted build, and we did video documentation and photographs during the trusted build, and then we did backups after the trusted build. So we have really good evidence, and you can read all about those reports in the Mesa 1, 2, and 3 reports. Jeff O'Donnell did one of those recently, really an excellent report. So that's all there. But you mentioned Lake County, and the reason I just wanted to cover the bases of the Mesa County thing so people understand, all Tina did was allow and arrange for backups to be made. She did everything by the law. In fact, some of the charges that she was convicted of actually involved her contacting the Secretary of State saying, I need to make these, bring somebody in to help me do this. What are the rules? And they said, oh, well, you're not allowed to call and get permission. Well, that's exactly what she was following the rules to the letter. She's very innocent. Now, contrast that to what we did in Lake County. In Lake County, Ohio, they contacted me in March of 2021 and said, Dr. Frank, we don't trust the Dominion machines anymore. We want to get rid of them. By the way, these are the same machines that Tina had in her county, in Mesa County. So she says, and they said, we've contacted the Secretary of State, Frank LaRose in Ohio, and we've asked him, hey, we want to get rid of these machines. We don't trust them. And he says, oh, they're perfectly trustworthy. Don't worry about it. So, and they said, well, if we can prove they're not okay, can we get rid of them? Frank LaRose said, sure, go ahead, Secretary LaRose. So they contacted me and said, Dr. Frank, can you show us can you prove that our machines are not secure? I said, as a matter of fact, I know exactly how to do that. And so once again, I contacted the same person that worked in Mesa County. By the way, I'm free to talk about this in public because it's all a matter of public record now. And normally I wouldn't want to talk about this because we don't want to make more Tina Peters. And we also don't want to we don't want to expose other counties, and we have multiple other counties. So anyway, Lake County, during their spring election, actually during the election, our guy did a penetration test, broke into their system, documented the entire network. All the machines were talking to one another, in fact. Nobody even knew that until we had done that the machines were actually setting up their own networks and communicating over other internet networks as well. And we documented the whole thing, presented all that evidence to the county officials. They took it to the Secretary of State and said, see, our machines are not safe. We want out of here. And Frank LaRose, instead of saying, oops, you're right, he called the FBI in, and the FBI came in and did a full investigation, and there were no charges. Why were there no charges? Because we didn't do anything illegal. Everything we did was by the book, letter for letter, the same as Tina. But in this case, we went even further than we did with Tina. During the election itself, we hacked into the election and documented all the stuff that was happening. We even added another candidate to the ballot temporarily and cast votes for them and flipped other votes and then undid all of that and backed it all out. Well, when it was brought to the attention of the Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, he did a public news conference and he said, Oh, he says, everybody, I'm sorry to report there was a security breach during the 2021 spring election. But don't worry, everybody, there was no fraud. Well, that wasn't the point. We weren't trying to do fraud. We proved that the systems were vulnerable. So anyway, when you compare what Tina did with what we did in Lake County, it's like a whole nother level. The reason they were prosecuting Tina is not because she did anything wrong. They're prosecuting her by their own public statements because they wanted to make an example out of her and scare any other clerk in the country from ever coming close to investigating their own elections.
Easy to think about how often this goes on and how the different places that you've gone and you've studied and nothing was ever done. And when you were talking about the machines, Dr. Frank, I remember in Mike Lindell's trial, they showed there was a conference that went on in Vegas. I know you're probably familiar with this, where they brought in these people who know how to hack into systems, and they actually hacked into from a computer, connected to a voting machine, hacked into the voting machine. There were people around the voting machine unaware that this computer was connected. He pushed a button, and before he did, he says, watch, I'm about to turn it off. He pushed a button, the computer turned off, the voting machine did, and the people just looked at it because they were thinking, you know, I didn't touch anything. How did this computer just shut down? They had hacked into it. So this is a real life example. It goes on. So while they bring in they're experts and they bring in all these people who say, oh no, our machines are safe, there's nothing wrong. The real people, not the experts, the real people go in and say, we can hack into them. We've done it.
Of course.
You know, and so you think about Mike Lindell and his fight. You think about Tina Peters, who right now at this time as we speak is facing a judge. This is just all for saying we need to look into these machines. And so they're getting slapped on the hand for this. And you have this Gold Star mother who is serving this long prison sentence, you know, and wanting to get out while she appeals. It's just unacceptable, and I know President Trump has come out. He has come out on Truth Social, fighting for Tina Peters, and you mentioned turning it into a federal whistleblower case. People have asked, why can't he pardon her? Well, it's because it's not a federal case, is why. And so, but he has. Correct. He has asked the DOJ to do anything that they can to release her. Dr. Frank, Karoline Leavitt is giving a speech right now at the White House. It is an impromptu speech. We appreciate you being on here today. We're going to send it over to Washington, D.C. right now, live with Karoline Leavitt.
Pardons, but I have told you and will say again, the White House counsel's office is investigating the potential abuse of the auto pen from the previous administration. This is a really important question to get to the bottom of, and the White House is working with the Department of Justice to do that.
Caroline, did the White House support Speaker Johnson canceling the votes today over the vote over the Epstein files being released?
I'm not sure if anyone here spoke to the Speaker about that. As you know, we're always in pretty good communication with the Speaker of the House, but the President himself has said that if the Department of Justice has credible evidence, they should release it.
Caroline, on the hostages that you're going to, hostage families that you're going to be meeting with, any additional information about the release of more hostages in the days and the weeks ahead?
The President has made it very clear in the proposals that he has spoken to the Israelis about, and they have agreed upon, and that have been sent to Hamas, that he wants to see the release of all of the hostages, and that includes the remains of the hostages who unfortunately lost their lives while being held hostage in Gaza. So that's a critical part of the President's efforts to draw a ceasefire and bring this war to an end. So I'm going to go inside and talk to those families about that, and I'll see you all tomorrow at the briefing.
You guys want to respond to Obama?
There you have it, Karoline Leavitt, who gave a brief statement as she walked the grounds of the White House just now and stopped and talked to the press for a couple of minutes. So good to hear from her. And as for Tina Peters, we had to cut that interview short with Dr. Frank. We do have people inside the courthouse right now in Denver, Colorado, and we're awaiting to hear from them regarding the judge's decision. When we find out, if it happens within this hour, we will bring it to you right here on Spin Room. In the meantime, you can also go to our social media pages. That is, I want to talk about this. I'm glad you brought this up. This is a flyer that was going around for the supporters of Tina Peters to come out today before noon Mountain Time to support Tina. As I mentioned before, at the Mike Lindell trial, there was a lot of Tina Peters supporters who were there, so they were calling all of the people of Colorado to come out today and support her outside the courthouse. This is Donald Trump's post on Truth Social after the meeting with Mike Lindell. Mike Lindell actually went to the White House a couple of months ago and spoke to the president, updated him on the Tina Peters case, and it was just days later that President Trump put out this Truth Social post asking the DOJ to do whatever they can within their power to make sure that Tina Peters is free. He talks about the unfair election of 2020 in that post. You can read it in its entirety right there. But we're all supporting Tina Peters to get more. If it does not happen within this hour, you can always follow me on social media. You can follow Lindell TV. We are on X. We're on YouTube. We are on Vocal. That's Mike Lindell's social media platform. And we are on Facebook and Instagram. So all of those platforms, you can definitely get the breaking news there. Also follow me on those platforms if you can. And it was also a big day at the White House as President Trump welcomed the President of the Republic of the Philippines. Alison Steinberg was there to cover that. We hope to have her here with us in a minute to talk about that. She was just at the press gaggle, so we're going to give her a few moments, and we are going to take a quick commercial break and join Alison with President Trump meeting with the President of the Republic of the Philippines when we come right back. Stay with us here on Spin Room.
Friends, we all know the truth. Big Pharma and the federal bureaucracy have made a mess of health care in this country, and boy, that's an understatement. President Trump signed an executive order to bring prices down, and that's a great step. But we know that real change takes time. There's one pharmacy that is already stepping up. I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're not waiting. They're taking action now with a summer sale that gives you the power to take control of your health. Right now, through the end of June, you get 20% off site-wide, no insurance required. Did you hear that? 20% off, site-wide, no insurance required. They work with licensed doctors in all 50 states, and they ship fast, straight to your door. Whether it's ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, methylene blue, antibiotics, emergency kits, or your daily prescriptions, this is a time to stock up. If you believe in medical freedom, if you're tired of waiting for someone else to fix things, do what I do. Take action. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Lindell and use promo code Lindell20, Lindell 20 for 20% off your entire order. That's allfamilypharmacy.com, Lindell. Promo code Lindell20. Let's protect our families, defend our freedom, and make America healthy again together.
With everybody talking about making America healthy again, I thought today'd be a great day to talk to all my fellow patriots about the importance of making your homes healthy again. Well, we have proudly partnered with airwaterhealing.com and their revolutionary whole home air purification system. The V3 from Air Water Healing does 3,000 square feet of purification. It eliminates dust, mold, viruses, and odors. But here's the part I love. They require no filters to ever be changed and virtually no maintenance. Whether you suffer from asthma, allergies, seasonal bronchitis, or just want to protect your family from the flu or even greater threats, don't wait to get your V3 from airwaterhealing.com today. Use code Lindell for 20% off in savings and free shipping. That's promo code Lindell at airwaterhealing.com.
Welcome back to Spin Room. I'm Vanessa Broussard. Thanks so much for joining us. We have a lot going on at this hour, but we're really focusing on what's going on in Colorado, where Tina Peters is going before a judge today. And we have Dr. Frank still with us here today. Dr. Frank, sorry we had to cut you off a minute ago. We had to check in with Caroline Leavitt at the White House as she walked by. But I want to talk about a post that President Trump put out after Mike Lindell met with him at the White House. And it reads this: radical left Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser ignores illegals committing violent crimes like rape and murder in his state and instead jailed Tina Peters, a 69-year-old Gold Star mother who worked to expose and document Democrat election fraud. Tina is an innocent political prisoner being horribly and unjustly punished in the form of cruel and unusual punishment. This is a communist persecution by the radical left Democrats to cover up their election crimes and misdeeds in 2020. The same Democrat Party that flies to El Salvador to try to flee an MS-13 terrorist is cruelly imprisoning, perhaps for life, a grandmother whose brave and heroic son gave his life for America. Colorado must end this unjust incarceration of an innocent American. I am hereby directing the Department of Justice to take all necessary action to help secure the release of this hostage being held in a Colorado prison by the Democrats for political reasons. And then in all caps, he says, "Free Tina Peters now." What's your take on that post, Dr. Frank?
I think his point well taken. You know, I was there at the sentencing. I testified at Tina Peters' sentencing, and Judge Barrett just opened both barrels on her. Oh, she's such a horrible threat to society. She's done irreparable damage. And he basically gave her the maximum sentence on everything he could possibly scrape up. But at the same time that he's putting this beautiful threat to society in prison, he's letting rapists and other criminals out on the street after a little time at all. So that's the point that President Trump is making. Tina's no threat to America. In fact, the judge is actually kind of given her a platform. He's actually increased her visibility and increased her platform and increased her ability to point out to the world that our elections need looking closely at.
Well, we do have some staff inside the courthouse right now, and I'm just getting word that it is packed. There's actually an overflow room for Tina Peters. I'm told that Tina Peters is not there and that it has started. And they are talking about the habeas corpus right now, the petitions and things like this.
Yep.
Yes. So they're saying that the courtroom's packed, the overflow area is packed as well. What does this tell you about the American people who want justice for someone like Tina? I mean, they're coming out in droves to support her.
I saw the same kind of sentiment at her sentencing. People know this isn't fair. People are objecting. It's kind of similar to the J6ers. You know they don't belong in there. It's not okay. In fact, President Trump would have already pardoned her and she'd be out, except that she didn't commit any federal crimes, according to the court. According to the court, they were all state crimes. And so they're having to kind of wriggle their way around all these technical difficulties, you know, the way lawyers do that. So that's where they're at. So I think, as I traveled the country, especially when she was under state arrest, for about a year there, she wasn't allowed to leave the state of Colorado. She was under state arrest because she was such a horrible influence on the country. So what I would do traveling around the country, because I would give these public events, is I would Zoom her in and let her speak to the crowd and give her 10 minutes, 15 minutes all around the country. The people in America love her. They know she's a sweetheart. And she never intended to be a public figure like this. She just wanted transparency in her own elections and wanted to figure out herself what was wrong with her own elections. I stood with her, remember, at the Cyber Symposium that year in 2021, summer 2021. I stood on the stage with her. She was shaking. She was. I had to put my arm around her to stabilize her. She wasn't intending to be a whistleblower in a public sense. She was just trying to figure out what was wrong with her own elections. She was thrust into the limelight when the state of Colorado discovered that she had these backups that expose election manipulation. So they were panicked. It's sort of the same as the Frank LaRose story I told earlier. Once they realize that we have the hard evidence, they panic and they they're quite concerned because, you know, the Secretary of State, for example, in this case in Griswold in Colorado, she accidentally put the BIOS passwords up online for over 6 months for like half of their counties. It's a horrible error, and far more egregious than what she claims that Tina Peter did. And why isn't she in prison? My opinion, and I think the sentiment of a lot of people across the United States, is every day that Tina Peter spends in prison ought to be matched double by Griswold and Rubenstein and the people who did lawfare against her. And I think that's what the Department of Justice investigation will reveal, that there was deliberate, intentional trumping up of charges and over punishment of something that wasn't really anything wrong in the first place.
And I want to keep you here because it's getting really good, Dr. Frank. They're going over the practicalities on if she were to be released on bond right now with the judge.
Yeah.
I'm hearing from the staff that we have there in the overflow room that the lawyer is challenging the judge. The judge did ask why she is entitled to bond. And her attorneys, Tina's attorneys, responded it was that her First Amendment rights were violated. How so, Dr. Frank?
In her trial, she was not allowed to use exculpatory evidence. And you're not allowed to hide evidence that can exonerate the defendant. And the prosecution did do that. And it's right in the record. For example, during her trial, they played a tape recording of me in her office. A tape recording, by the way, I didn't even know existed. It was about 11 minutes long. And the defense came up and said, hey, we've got this longer recording of Dr. Frank in Tina Peter's office. We would like to play that recording for the jury so that they can hear the context of that shorter 11-minute recording, because the prosecution actually misrepresented the shorter recording, and the defense wanted them to hear the fuller context. For example, part of the short recording, I wasn't even talking to Tina, I was talking to one of her assistants. And so the prosecution deliberately misconstrued what was in that tape, and Tina was not allowed to present the evidence that showed that isn't at all what was going on. And I wasn't even permitted to get in the stand. Think about that. Doug Frank is a tape recording of me is being played during the trial, but I'm not allowed to take the stand and discuss it. Think about that. That's a huge issue. So I think that's what they're talking about when they're talking about her rights being violated. When she was sentenced, when Tina was sentenced, you'll notice she even looked over towards the jury box who wasn't there that day and said, you know, she doesn't hold them accountable at all. They only got to hear one side of the story. The jury never got to hear her side of the story. And I agree with that. I was telling people for years, don't worry about Tina, she'll be fine. There's no way it'll ever go to trial, because if it goes to trial, they'll be able to put me in the witness stand, and me and others, and we'll show all the evidence that there was why Tina was doing what she was doing. It would justify her behavior, but that never got to happen. And what they have is before the trial, they held all these pre-trial hearings where they ruled out all the evidence that Tina would have used to justify her behavior and to show that her behavior was legal throughout the entire process. I mean, I've scrutinized this at great detail. Tina broke no laws. She did everything by the letter of the law. We went to pains to make sure she followed the letter of the law because we were intending to do a legal investigation afterwards. So it's crazy. It's sad. And yes, her rights are violated because of that.
And happening right now, too, is that they're talking about that Tina Peters fears for her life every single day. If people are wondering at home what's going on, this is what we're doing. It's live play-by-play. I'm getting to my phone right now from our staff inside the courthouse. The attorneys are saying to the judge that she's in jail with murderers and rapists and these terrible criminals. And this is a woman who is a grandmother, who is an all-American, family woman, Gold Star mom.
Yeah.
And why is she in here with these criminals who commit all these crimes? Let her out on bond. So that's what the judge is hearing right now. They're basically telling the judge that here's a woman who just questioned our election and was looking into the systems, and got slapped on the hand and thrown into jail with all these criminals. So can you imagine, Dr. Frank, just being who you are, a nice family man, and you question the election, and you're thrown into jail and your cellmate is a murderer?
It doesn't make any sense. She's no threat to society. Prison is for violent criminals. She still can communicate with the outside world, so she's still an equal danger. The whole point of her being in jail is not because she's such a threat to society. The whole point is the judge and the Colorado legal system is trying to make an example out of her. And they've been very successful at this. As a matter of fact, as I travel the country, I meet with clerks all over the country, election officials. And when we discover fraud in their elections and show it to them, they panic. The blood drains from their face and they say, "Oh, Dr. Frank, please don't tell anybody. I don't want to be Tina Petered." The strategy of making a sacrificial lamb out of Tina has been very successful around the country. They've scared all the clerks. They've made all the clerks afraid to do any questioning. I describe our elections today across the country. You know, I've been doing this now for 4.5 years. I'm very familiar with every state election. I've studied it in great detail. And what I've learned, and what most people don't understand, is that in every state in America, the elections are centrally controlled. And you might remember, if you're old enough, I'm 64, you might remember in the old days, we used to have a central computer in campus. And then around campus, we would have all these terminals that logged into the main computer. You know, PCs weren't really available in the early days. And so there was a central computer, and then there were all these terminals around campus. And we called those terminals dumb terminals because they didn't have any computing in them. They were just merely a communication device with a screen and a keyboard so that you could basically talk to the main computer. Well, that's very similar to the way our elections are today. Our elections are centrally controlled by the state. Think of that as the central computer. And then all the clerks in all the counties, they're just dumb terminals. They don't do anything in their election except just push the buttons. And it's basically automatically and centrally controlled. And that's why Mike's evidence was so valuable that he came up with right at the beginning there, January 9th of 2021, when he had all the electronic evidence showing the machines were all talking to one another in real time. And then there are mathematical algorithms that are then able to operate on the complete election and manipulate the outcome. And that's where I came in. So that's why Mike and I connected up at the beginning. You know, earlier on, Vanessa, you mentioned a story about, I think it's called CanCon. It's in Vegas, about hacking into the machines. Well, in Mike's first symposium, the Cyber Symposium in South Dakota, he had planned to show the United States during his symposium an example of how the machines could flip votes. And so he had set up a voting machine, and there were about 250 in attendance, and he had people vote. So he had a whole bunch of people vote. And his intention was he was going to stand up on the screen and say, "Here are the results, everybody. And now, and here are the PCAPs that were collected, the recordings over the network. And now we're going to manipulate the election." And so manipulate. And then his intention was to then say, "And now here are the new results after the manipulation." So he was giving a tangible example to the public so that they can understand all the technical details of how the election was being manipulated. But his plan got subverted. And here's how. It was a beautiful story. So he announced the results and he says, "Now we're going to manipulate the election." And suddenly, two people in the audience using their cell phones hacked into the election machines themselves and manipulated the election. It was a beautiful example. It was unplanned, but it just showed that anybody with basic hacking skills can manipulate these elections. So it didn't quite go the way that Mr. Lindell had planned, but boy, oh boy, was it a beautiful illustration of how our elections are completely vulnerable. So anyway, I thought that was a fun answer to your earlier example. Mike's been a warrior at this since the very beginning, as you know, and he's a true patriot. And he has suffered in a similar way to Tina, and in terms of lawfare. I mean, the guy has spent his own personal wealth I sat with him in March of 2021 in studio when we were filming, and he said, he told me at the time, he says, Dr. Frank, he says, I've got $30 million liquid in the bank, and I'm going to spend it on election integrity. He says, I either spend it now or they're going to take it away from me later anyway. But of course, all of us at that time were thinking that it was going to be a short battle, 6 months, 9 months, and then we would have our country back because we had all the evidence. I mean, it's a logical assumption. If you have the evidence and you show the leaders in the state the evidence, certainly they would address it. We had to learn the hard way that, no, the system is not interested in reform. Our legislatures are not on our side. There isn't one legislature in the country that wants to reform our elections. There are legislators, but not legislatures. They all like having central control. States like having central control. Since when do governments give up power voluntarily? They like having centralized control, and our elections are now controlled at a state level. So that's kind of where we're at.
It is, unfortunately. And, you know, President Trump did sign an executive order on election integrity. I'm hoping there's more that comes out. I'm hearing that there is going to be more coming out soon, maybe even hopefully a special prosecutor to look into the 2020 election to see how this happened. And maybe when that evidence is clear and out there, then we can have some changes in the elections moving forward. I just don't know, but I think that that's what's coming down the pipes very soon. Are you hearing anything? Is there anything new you can tell us on that front?
Yeah. You know, all of us in the grassroots, and that's another thing that Mr. Lindell did. He established the Cause of America to help the grassroots. Remember, originally we thought and I was flying around with Mr. Lindell, meeting with Secretaries of States and Attorneys Generals. We thought we were going to fix it from the top down. We learned that that was an ineffectual strategy. So we began working from the grassroots up. And yes, I have lots of good news to report. Around the country, the grassroots is waking up. It's not just a political revival, it's also a spiritual revival that's happening around the country. People are learning the Constitution. People are discovering what's wrong with their elections. People are re-engaging their civic duties and their civic responsibilities. They're running for office. They're getting involved. So, you know, I remember Mr. Lindell said, he says 10 years from now, of course, this is 4 years ago, so 6 years from now. So he said 10 years from now, we're going to look back and we're going to realize that everything had to happen for a reason. And he's right. I wouldn't have been awake. I wouldn't have been engaged in election integrity, except that the election was stolen from us. And a lot of us wouldn't have woken up about our health organizations being so corrupt, except for COVID, and our government is so corrupt. So a lot of these things had to happen to wake us up. And now that we're waking up, there's really good news on the grassroots front. Lots of good things happening in Missouri, Oregon, California, Wisconsin, Maine, of all places. People don't realize how much good stuff is happening at the grassroots. It doesn't get a lot of coverage. One big thing is in Shasta County, Northern California, Clint Curtis is now the new registrar of voters there. That's a big deal. It's going to be pretty exciting to have actually a real transparent election again in our country in a big county. It'll basically be setting an example, a bright light around the country. And Huntington Beach, Southern California, they voted that starting in 2026, they're going to be running their own elections locally. Good stuff happening in a lot of places.
It really is. And people's eyes are open to what's going on around the country. They're more aware because of your work, because of Cause of America, because of Mike Lindell, because of Tina Peters. Yes. There are so many people, President Trump, the list goes on and on. People are really aware of, these inaccuracies going on, and they know that when they go in to vote now, if you see something, say something, because before they would just go in, cast their ballot and go home. But now all eyes are on the polling locations at all times. Still waiting, Dr. Frank. We're hearing that it's just a lot of courtroom talk that they usually do in any proceeding where the lawyers go back and forth with the judge. Yep, they're still just talking. No decision yet. So do you mind sticking with us, Dr. Frank? I'm going to bring on another guest to talk about a great thing for kids. It's in our Maha Mom segment. His name is Chad Stewart. We're going to go to him now. I want parents to know that you need to put the phones away for your kids. No screens, just stories. Give your kids the gift of imagination as they start preparing for back to school. Author Chad Stewart is joining us today for our Maha Mom segment. Chad, thanks so much for being here.
It's great to be back. Great to see you again.
Books build dreams, and we believe every child should read. So talk to us about the importance of reading at all ages, because really, we read to our kids at night and in the evenings, but as they start to get older, Chad, they start playing outside with their friends. They come in and they get on their video games, or they get on TikTok now. Don't get me started on that one. They get on TikTok. They just put the books away as they get older, but it's so important. So I think that, you can give us some guidance for parents on how important it is for children to read at all ages.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, literature and literacy, frankly, but literature has never been more important, especially now, and starting them at a young age. And I've had so many parents nationally and globally. This is book 1 of the Britfield and Lost Crown series. It's a 7-book series. We just launched book 4. This is Britfield and the Eastern Empire. But I've had moms or parents that have read it to their 3 or 4 or 5-year-old because they weren't quite there yet, and it's great too. Everyone learns differently. Some people just like to read. Some people are very visual. Some people like to hear it. And often when children are hearing a book read to them, it impacts them, especially at that age, even greater. And onto 5, 6, and 7, and even having a group read where you're like maybe with your parents and you're all. I've had parents, because I mean this is number one. It's a national bestseller. It's one of the most awarded book series in fiction to date, and it's very exciting. So I've had parents that will get together in a group and they'll read a chapter out loud as kind of a fun thing to do during the week or on the weekend. And each one's doing the character and stuff. And it's really cool involvement. And set aside from, moving on to just reading it yourself, our youngest reader's 7, our oldest reader is 93 years old. 55% of our global audience are adults. And, but what to read? And there's so little out there. And so there's about an 85 to 90% worldwide gap for clean, family-focused, good, non-agenda content. Massive gap that is just waiting to be filled, and we're filling it with the Britfield series. And they're fast-paced, engaging stories. I think what's great about them is they take place in current time, so they're not futuristic, post-apocalyptic. There is no magic. There's no witchcraft, demigod, superheroes. These are very authentic. I always say it's the Hardy Boys meets Nancy Drew meets James Bond meets Narnia. So it's this great, engaging series. I've had 12-year-olds that have read book 1 5 to 7 times. Huge fans. I got an email the other day, and one group of kids had read the entire 4 books over a week period. And it's not because they're simplified. They're very complex in the story. The layering, the writing, we have great vocabulary. It's just the writing style. I move very quickly. It's based on a 3-act structure. I come from a movie script background. And so they're very visual. And I think 90% of the people that have read the book say they read like a movie. I feel like I'm there. I feel like I'm the character, which is great engagement. They take place at different parts of the world. Book 1 is in England. Book 2 is in France. Book 3 is in Italy. And book 4 is in Eastern Europe. And as children are reading, as adults are reading it, they're learning about history, geography, art, architecture, and cultures based on family, friendship, loyalty, courage, and hope. And we're also incorporating the 4 C's: creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. And I'll stop there, but I just wanted to it's not just having a great story, but it's having a story that's clean, that's real, that engages them, helps them think for themselves. I mean, what we're doing is we're bringing creativity back to the classroom. You're not solving problems by waving a wand or gaining superpowers. And most of that stuff that's out there right now in the literature, the films, and even the media is out there for 3 reasons: disengage kids from reality. Number 2, make them feel less than they are. If I could just be a superhero, if I could just be magic. And number 3, really introduce offensive and unnecessary agendas and nefarious content. We don't do any of that. And so kids are learning about England and France and all this great stuff, history and culture. So.
You're absolutely right. And you were talking about the classrooms, and I know you've toured the country going to different schools. What is that like for you and the children? When you go there, what are the discussions that are held?
It's fantastic. When we launched book 1, Britfield and Lost Crown, in August 2019, I started a national school tour. I drove 9,000 miles. I visited 23 states, presented over 200 schools in front of more than 40 to 50,000 students. And this was everything from top private schools to Title I schools to public to Christian to Catholic to homeschool to charter. I mean, it was everything from an 80 person classroom, or library, to auditoriums of over 400 4th through 8th graders. And I didn't really know what to expect, but it was amazing. And I'll be honest, on my tour, I didn't have one single issue, one single problem where the kids weren't paying attention or it was fidgety or just nothing. It was just really great. And I was there because I really wanted to inspire them. I wasn't trying to sell anything. And kids at that age, they very smart, obviously, and very articulate. And they know when you're selling them bunk, if you will, you know what I mean, or flashover substance. And I was just there to excite them, to encourage them, to bring creativity back into their minds, tell them about the importance of storytelling. Told them how I had an idea for Rip Van Lost Crown 10 years ago, and it took me over 10 years and probably 10 to 20,000 hours from concept and a doodle to launching the book series. Hard work. And I tell them that anything of value takes time. 3, 5, 10 years. And I'm telling that to 4th and 5th graders. So it was really great. It was fun. The questions that we would get at the end was just, electric. You had hands going up everywhere. And it was a very engaging kind of presentation. I got up there, I had a pitch deck. And so we had some trailers and some cool images and stuff. We were talking about creativity and we were showing some examples. We did a couple movie trailers and stuff. And looking at the impact of that and creativity and the importance of it and storytelling. And I even say, like a lot of you don't like to write or not, but storytelling is and this is a fact, is one of the top 3 skills in the world right now. Creativity is number 1. Creativity is the number 1 most important skill set in the world. And there is a massive gap because we've been in creativity crisis for over 30 years. It's not engineering. It's not technology. It's not all this AI nonsense. It has nothing to do with that. It's creativity. That is at the core of everything. And every child is born creative.
You're right. And, I like what you said earlier, because for all of the parents watching at home, your series is a series of books that are clean family reading. And you don't get a lot of that anymore. We see a lot of these woke books coming out. Unfortunately, parents are really having to pay attention to what their children are reading. But with your book, it's just a win-win for everything. It's a good read. Their imagination can run wild. It takes them through the world where they can actually learn about different countries and all of the things. So tell us about your series, Britfield, and taking your readers through this passage of different states of imagination.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to ignite the next generation of children's imagination and creativity. And we're doing it through the book series. And we know that we're hitting them. And this is the thing, too, is that the children can relate to the characters. And it is a diverse group of characters. And book 1 starts up at an orphanage up in Yorkshire, Northern England. It's about Tom and Sarah, two 12-year-olds. But as the story unfolds, and then they go to Oxford, Windsor, London, and finally down to Canterbury. And there's a reason for those 5 pillars of influence. There's a lot of other characters, really great diverse cast of characters. And then in book 2, much more characters, 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-somethings. And that's why it's been such a huge hit, especially with adults too. Then it's fun too, because I'll have parents be reading it with their kids, meaning like the child's reading it and then they're reading it and then they talk about it, at the end of the chapter or something like that. They compare notes and things like that. So it's a lot of fun. But no, this is a huge movement. It started 12 years ago. It'll be a 7-book series. We're on trajectory right now to actually outsell the Harry Potter series, which we believe we'll do in the next 10 years, including the Tolkien and Lewis series. And it's a national movement. It's a national movement in literature, literacy, creativity, education, films, and media. We're in pre-production of the first of 7 major motion pictures. This is I just finished the 8th draft of the movie script last week. Did one final run through, just have a great team. Had my producer in England for a couple of weeks that was looking at sites. So we're hoping to be filming in spring of next year, the first of 7 major motion pictures of the Britfield series. So we have the movies. We have the book series. We're working on 2 television programs based on the series. And also we're now in development of multiple products, including a board game. And I've been on conversations in the last two weeks with major hitters in the industry of retail that have worked at like Mattel, Fisher Price, Spin Master. They do board games out of Toronto. Just all the big big hitters, and we're excited. I mean, the thing is it's been a soft launch for us for 7 years, and now this year, as of April this year, we're going global with this thing. And so we've been building the infrastructure, building the team, building the branding, and now literally like every week there'll be huge press releases, articles coming out, things like that. So we're excited.
We have about 30 seconds left, Chad. Can you tell us how people can get your book?
Sure, and a great thank you again for being on the show. And again, it's a great summer read. It's a great going back to school. It's a great Christmas gift. If you do purchase through our website, Britfield.com website, for the next literally 4 weeks, I'm signing the books, and this is it. Pretty soon we'll be taking those options off, and then it'll just be through all Amazon and all the other major platforms and retailers. But you can still buy through our website and get signed books, and we include a bookmark and a sticker, which is kind of cool. And we package it up and everything. But that's just for 4 weeks. I'm so busy now, and I've enjoyed doing it. I've signed probably 30,000 books, if you can imagine. But it's very cool to get a signed book from an author. I love signed books from authors, and it just makes it classic. And then if they put a note in there, I'll sign it to whoever they want to. But it's a unique moment in history. So.
It really is. And I'm so proud of you. A lot of good things coming up your way as well. So we'll definitely keep in touch and have you back on soon.
Excellent. Appreciate it. Thank you. Godspeed.
Thank you. And we're going to go back to Dr. Frank now, still waiting on a judge's decision in Colorado regarding the Tina Peters case. Tina Peters is... her attorneys are going before a judge today in Denver, Colorado at the Alfred A. Araj Federal Courthouse in hopes that they can get her out on bond while she appeals her conviction. Tina is not there, I'm told, Dr. Frank. I know the judge had ordered her to be in person today, but we're told that she is not there at the courthouse. But a packed house there inside the courtroom. Also, the overflow room is packed, so standing room only, as a lot of supporters came out hoping that the judge frees Tina Peters today. The Free Tina Peters movement has been huge, and this is what the country wants, and the president has asked for it as well. You said it at the very beginning of our broadcast. She has the DOJ, or the judge does, knocking at their door. So, it all comes down to this, so we'll see what happens. What's your take?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in that judge's position right now because he's between a rock and a hard place. If he gives Tina a fair shake, he's going to have to pay the piper to the forces that be in Colorado. But most judges I've learned tend to comply with the precedent. They comply with everybody else. The way you get ahead in the legal industry, the legal profession, is to not make waves. You just kind of gradually climb up the ladder by getting along with all the other judges and go along to get along. So, but the difference in this situation is that he's got the Department of Justice coming down the back of his neck. So it'll be interesting to see which way he goes. And I think he should just allow it to go forward because then that way he keeps the DOJ off his back. And he's not making a decision about whether she's going to be released or not. He's going to be making a decision about whether or not we're going to consider releasing her or not. And so it gives him a little bit of buffer. So strategically, if I owe you lunch if I'm wrong, but I bet you he's going to let it go to court.
Right, and I hope that you are right there. So, it could be any minute now. Maybe a decision's not made today. We've seen that happen before where he hears both sides and then the judge will take the day or two and then come back with a decision later. We're hoping for a decision today. And I'm also eager to see, because the judge did order Tina to be in court today, and she's not there. Her attorneys had originally wanted her to do some sort of call-in from jail, like a Zoom call or something like that, and the judge ordered her to be there. But this might be another example, Dr. Frank, that her health is, in fact, deteriorating, that she couldn't make that trip.
I've been on calls with her from jail, and she has had some low spots. In fact, she was really sick at one point early on while she was still in municipal jail. Most people don't realize she was in county jail for 6 months before going to prison. And I think that was also another purpose of the judge. He was trying to make her life miserable, and she was, the press had really made Tina into an enemy. And so then she has to go to her own local jails when her own local people don't like her. So I think that was on purpose. It was not a very healthy environment. And about a month into her stay, she did have a very low point in her health, and they had to move her. And they moved her to another facility, and they had to move her a couple of times. I wouldn't ever say that Tina is weak. She's a strong lady, and she's got a good attitude. When you talk to her in jail, she talks about how she's helping the girls, the other girls. They come to her for advice. She's like a witness. She's like a good, strong character person trying to help other people. So, I'm not happy that she's suffering the way she is. And yes, I'm certain she's had some low points in her health. But I'll tell you, God works all things together for good. And there she is being a good character influence on some of the less character-filled people that she's stuck with. So, she's with, real criminals. She's not really a criminal. So, maybe God is going to bring some gems out of that. Who knows?
Yes, and we are going to continue to follow this. Dr. Frank, we appreciate you so much for coming on. Always a good friend of ours here at Lindell TV. Always appreciate your input, and we're going to keep following this throughout the next few minutes or even hours. We'll see how it goes, but we invite everyone to follow us on social media as well. As soon as a decision comes down from the judge, we will post it on our social media pages. I'll also post it on mine, so make sure you're following and you have your notifications turned on so you'll get those alerts as soon as a decision comes down. And that'll do it for us here today on Spin Room. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you right back here tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, Steve Bannon's War Room is next. You're watching Lindell TV.
With everybody talking about making America healthy again, I thought today'd be a great